I'm saying? And I came up again. I came up with this idea just out of the blue. Cause I never talked about Dilla, just like I never discussed Pun on this channel or Bob Marley. And I said, today is unfortunately the anniversary of his death. Let's discuss Dilla and salute him. In the past tense and you know what can be said. Like this guy's a legend. I first knew about him like reading a Vibe magazine article about him in like '95, and at that time he was working on the Far Side album and Beats, Rhymes, and Life, and um, that was my introduction to him. And then just sharing his production with Tribe and the Uma production crew with Q-Tip and Ali, and I loved his production style, and over the years he's transcended from that crew, from Tribe, and starting Slum Village, and bring them to prominence with their fantastic was it Fantastic Voyage?
Yeah.
That Fantastic Voyage album, and I always get Slum Village and Little Brother first albums mixed up. I always could get mixed up with the Listening and Fantastic Voyage for some reason, but seeing Slum Village rise to prominence with him on the production scene and rapping with them, and the many projects he's done for Common and Erica Badu, The Roots, and being a part of the Soul Quarians crew with other talented artists like Raphael Sadiq and D'Angelo and Bilal, and um he's definitely a legend. I'm not a Dilla stan. 'Cause I feel like the internet do have a lot of those Dilla stands the same way they have the Doom stands, and it's just ridiculous to me because I feel like they look at Dilla like he's a god, like he's what I mean. Like I love Dilla, but I mean I wasn't like some Dilla stan where I was just out there copping every Dilla project that was out. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And I feel like the internet really their fan base for him and Doom was just crazy. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna get
But
into that too.
but but yeah, I definitely love this production style because he was real soulful with his production, and he had that boom bap sound, and so he was just different. And his sampling techniques was different, and um he made a lot of classic stuff, and I just wanted to like discuss like some impactful albums that he had a major part of, that if he wasn't a part of these albums, I don't think they would have been classic albums in my opinion. So like the first one, like number five for me, is Erica Badu, Mama's Gun. I thought Mama's Gun was a
Oh.
dope album.
Okay.
No, I don't really hear nobody mention like talk about. It's always about her first album. I don't really hear nobody mention like her second album, and
No.
I feel like with this album, like when you hear joints like Didn't You Know, and Booty, and he just had like it was just like he was in his bag on this album, and it was just soulful. It was like a continuation from Baduism, and I think it's still one of her best albums after her first album, and it's very underrated. We got to talk about this album at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm definitely down for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my number five, and I'm like, yeah, like, I gotta mention that album.
Yo, to be real with you, now that
Hmm.
you said that, I
Yeah.
actually might say five. Now, I thought you were just specifically talking about Jay Dilla albums.
Right.
So my number five is gonna be
Mm.
The Far Side with La Ben California.
Yes.
This is when during his JD bag. Um, very dope album from them. To me, it took me a while to fully appreciate Loving California. I gotta be real with you,
Right.
because I'm more of like a bizarre ride to the Far
That's all
Side
right.
fan.
Right.
But like with JD's production with the Far Side, I don't know, it just really spoke boundaries and stuff like that. Because I know
Hmm.
he did the Y joint, he
Right.
did fucking Running, Splatorium. I love that track.
Hmm.
I kind of prefer the JD mix.
Yeah. I
The
love
why
that.
you gotta be like that. That mix,
Yes.
oh my god.
Hmm.
But yeah, man, Live in California to me that it was like the Far Side at the most mature, in my
Yes.
opinion. So
Yes.
classic album. in my opinion, the last great album, in my opinion, which we'll talk
Yes,
about that one day.
I agree. Definitely. Number four for me is Tribe with Beats, Rhymes, and Life. This to me is still like there. I mean, many debate that Love Movement was a great album for them. I don't like Love Movement like that. I think this was like their last great album. And again, the production with Dilla and Ali and Tip, and I think I feel like with every album they elevated. You had the first album with People's Instinctive and the Low End Theory and Midnight Marauders, and this album I believe they got a Grammy. They nominated for a Grammy for this, right?
You mean for Beast Rob's life?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and people leave this album out. Like they always talk about again, Midnight Marauders and Low End Theory. I feel like Beats, Rhymes, and Life is right there with those albums, and it was dope. When you got joints like Once Again and The Hop and Phony Rappers and you know wordplay. I definitely think is banging still to this day. The production was very melodic, but they had like the real heavy bass and the drums were knocking, and that's all Dilla right there. And I feel like it's definitely a mention. And the last album they did was it Thank You for Your Service. That was cool. I don't feel like that's even in the discussion when it comes to Low End Theory, Midnight, and Beats, Rhymes, and Life. I just feel like those are like their best albums and they this whole discography. And Dilla was a major part of that, and that was like right around the time when I first knew who he was. I mean, I never heard of this dude before Beats, Rhymes, and Life, and I was like, yo, like the shit he did on Lab Cab and Beats, Rhymes, and Life. I'm like, those are classic albums. So I just definitely had to put that in the discussion.
Mm-hmm. While you go with that, I'm gonna go with comments of like Water for Chocolate.
Yes.
Dope album. This is pretty much like the second chapter of Common, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So Aquarian era. Um, I always want to put like one artist per list. So I
Hmm.
I was close to picking B,
Yeah.
but you know what? I feel like B was a lot more Kanye.
There's more Kanye.
Yeah, it was a lot more Kanye than Dilla.
Yeah.
But I felt like Water for Chocolate was a lot more for Dilla.
Right.
Um, the fucking film called Pimp, in my opinion, one of my
Yes.
all-time favorite Kanye's. I mean, Common song.
Right.
Then you have The Light, which everyone knows that. Heat, love
Yes.
the usage of that Rick James bass line too.
Fire.
Yeah, man. Very dope album if you ask me and stuff like
Yeah.
that. You know what I'm saying? So,
Definitely.
um, pretty much just reintroduced Common. I want to say that was his major label debut,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken.
For like Water for Chocolate,
Yeah,
was it? Well, I
yeah,
mean,
it was.
yeah,
It was.
yeah, because he was on Relativity.
Yep, and relatively, I
Okay.
think it was underground. I mean,
Right.
independent.
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yep. Number three, I got The Roots. Things Fall Apart. Now it wasn't. I mean, Dilla was featured on here, but it wasn't like all Dilla. But I think with this album being that it's their like most successful album, they got a Grammy for it. I remember watching that Grammy show when J Lo with the infamous green dress and all that, and
Yeah,
um, this was actually the first Roots album I ever purchased. I never purchased El Duff. I need to get that, but this is one of their best. I know many would consider this their best diss in Philadelphia, and Dilla had influence on this album. You know what I'm saying? You know, what's the just the joint? Dynamite. I think that was produced by him, and he. I think with this album, like not only did this album put them on the map as a household name, but I felt like they used Dilla more to me on like even on game. I think on Game Theory they used Dilla as well, and his death had a major impact on the group. And they even did a mixtape in, I want to say it was '09 or 2010. It was called Dilla Joints, and it's like all like Dilla instrumentals.
yeah,
And That was one of my favorite mixtapes. Like for a mixtape to be like just instrumentals alone, I don't think it was ever released in the stores. But I remember downloading it from that Piff, and it was like all Dilla instrumentals, and I believe the Roots band was actually playing the instrumentals, and on that mixtape, and that was great. But I feel like he definitely had an influence on this album, and yeah, man, like this is a five of my classic. It would definitely will always be one of my favorite Roots albums, and I wish he would have worked more with the Roots. I'm pretty sure they have like joints in the vault somewhere with Dilla beats or whatever. Knowing Questlove, because he always got like some shit in his vault. So I would like to hear those one day, like some Dilla and Roots stuff again. But definitely a classic.
Yes, sir. Very dope album indeed.
Yes,
Um, shoot. Okay, so we had number two or three.
two. Well,
Two.
it's three. It's gonna be two for you. I mean, two for me and three. I think it's three for you already.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with the J Dilla and Madlib collaboration album,
Yes,
the Champion Sound, which
yes.
I pretty much feel like that's a very, very, very dope album. Um,
I love that.
very raw
Yes,
album.
definitely.
Is yeah, very raw album. I know this album has like a following in the internet too. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? A lot of J Dilla albums and stuff.
right.
So this nigga Madlib worked with Doom and Dilla. Man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was a very dope album. Favorite songs that stand out. I like the joint with Percy P, the exclusive.
Yes.
I like Raw shit with Talib. The Heist was cool too.
Right.
So yeah, this was a very hot album. I fuck with it.
Yes. Great. Great album. My number two is the Far Side Lab Cabin California. My favorite Far Side album. Bizarre Ride was dope. I'm more of Lab Cab though. You know what I'm saying? Because it was just something about like listening to Running and seeing the video for that, and how they talked about like school bullying and facing your fears, and then when I saw like the video for Drop that Spike Jones did for them, and that to me was like a game changing video for any genre, and just watching that all the time on Yon TV Raps and Rap City, and um it was just dope, and the hi hats on that track alone was fire, and just the production that he gave to Farside. It was like I could hear a lot of those beats like if Q-Tip was on it. You know what I'm saying? And it felt like a native tongue project, but given to the Farside, and I think they killed it. Like got joints like Devil Music and something that means something, and and Run In, Drop, Spatatorium, like you mentioned, and just a classic album. I never get tired of playing it. I still think it's like they first two are the best to me in their whole discography, and they just took it up a notch with Dilla's production on this album, and that's one of his best produced albums in my opinion, man. So I'm like, yeah, like when I was thinking about this video, I was like, yo, I gotta. Before I started with this album was like the first one I thought of, and then Beats Rhymes and Life, what I'm saying. And then like the other ones came later, so I'm like, yeah, I gotta put Farsight on the list. So that's my number two.
Yes. My number two is actually Jay Dilla's The Shining.
Oh yes, I love that album.
Yeah,
That's probably my favorite Dilla project. Like, but for him,
that's a lot of people's favorite Dilla project. I'm not gonna
yeah,
lie.
yeah,
My number one is of course something different and shit, but
right,
this album right here, I know for a lot of people,
hmm
this album The Shining was like the introduction to Dilla
right,
for a lot of people.
yeah,
It had more like a very jazzy feel to it.
yeah, he did.
And he did. I don't think he finished the album before he died. I don't.
Oh wow, he
He
didn't
didn't
finish
finish
it.
it. It was 75% complete.
Oh shit.
And yeah, so you had like people like Common.
hmm
One of my all-time favorite hip hop songs so far to go with the oh my
Yes,
god.
I love that. I love that, and I didn't realize like there's two different versions. There's one on the Shining, and then there's one on the B album. That's
Yeah, I put it
crazy.
one on The Shining.
Yeah, that joint I love.
Yeah. Wait, you mean the Finding Forever joint?
Is it on? I thought it was on B
I could have.
with D'Angelo
Let me look it up. Hold on.
because I want to say the one on B is longer. It's a longer version.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
You're definitely right.
it's a
Okay.
longer version than the one on the Shining.
Yeah. But what else? Love with Pharaoh Monch. That was a good
Yes,
song.
I love that joint.
Yeah.
That joint is fire.
Body Moving with J Rock and Kerry
That
Riggins.
was dope.
Like this whole album just has a Sunday dinner
Yes,
feel to it. You know what I'm saying?
definitely.
Yeah. Damn. This was just a very, very, very good album from Dilla.
Yes, definitely. And I like and even some of the artists he used like Guilty Simpson and Dwale. I'm like, yo, like Jay Dilla could have worked with anybody, man. Like he could have brought the best out of anybody,
Right.
you know. My number one is definitely like Water for Chocolate, classic album. Probably, I mean, if you ask most heads, they'll say like that's his classic album. I think he has more than one classic. You know, B is a classic. I love Resurrection. One Day It All Makes Sense. He got a couple classics in his discography. You know, I don't think it's just like Water for Chocolate, but again, like with the Roots Things Fall Apart album, I think like Water for Chocolate like put him out like made him a household name, and I definitely think it's like top three like of the best albums of 2000 because it is definitely a classic through and through. When you hear joints like Cold Blooded and Doing It and Funky for You, The Light, of course, this Sixth Sense. You know what I'm saying? Like he had bangers on here, and Dilla was mostly a part of that, and as well as Questlove and James Poyser, but definitely a five mic classic album. And again, like without Dilla on some of these albums, would they be even classic material? I don't know if we didn't have Dilla on Lab Cab in California or like What If for Chocolate if it would be classics. So I think he had a major role in these albums, and I'm like, man, he left a legacy behind him, man. This was straight fire.
Very dope choice.
Yeah.
My number one is actually Donuts.
Donuts, dope, great
Yeah.
album, love it.
Um, this album right here is such a monumental album in hip hop history.
Yeah.
So the story with this album
Hmm.
was when he was like really sick, he was working on this album on his bed when he was
Right.
battling lupus and stuff like that, like in the hospital.
Hmm.
And the album was actually released on his 32nd birthday, but ironically, it was 3 days before he died.
Right.
So I didn't, I admit, I was kind of late on on the train to like this album. I didn't really get this album until like about 2012, 2013
Right.
years.
Right.
Loved it. It was, I like how the beats, it started like from the outro in the beginning, the intro's already like in the
Right.
begin in the end. I thought that was
Hmm.
kind of unique.
Right.
The album, I mean, the songs, like, I mean, you have like the Factory, Waves, Light My Fire. I mean, the beats are like less than 2 minutes, but they are
Yeah.
not.
Hmm.
Hello rappers use these beats.
Yeah.
Everybody from like Ghostface who used it brilliantly
Yes.
on Fish Scale, which
Classic.
again, this year, Fish Scale is going
Hmm.
to get talked
Oh
about.
yes,
I
definitely.
cannot wait
That
because
needs to be that needs to be discussed.
yeah, that was like the
Hmm.
boot camp clicks like Jesus Christ Superstar. That was like on that
Yeah,
same level and
I
shit.
agree. I agree.
Um, who else used it? I know Buster used a couple of beats too.
Yeah.
Um, of course Doom, like
Hmm.
Jesus, and Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Love the album. Some of that they use it in like your little bumpers and stuff like that too.
Right.
I mean, Donuts to me, like I know a lot of people say Introducing by DJ Shadows like
Right.
one of the greatest instrumental albums in hip hop history, which it is.
Hmm.
But to me, Donuts shits all over Introducing.
I agree. And I think I remember like when that came out and being online and hearing about him passing, and I remember when it dropped, and I didn't hear the album till later on, like years later. But I remember a lot of the beats because they were already used for other people's albums. You know,
Yeah,
like Buster did a whole mixtape called Diligence, and he used like a lot of those beats. You know, Lightworks. He have a track called is he have a track with Talib Kweli, and they flow they rhyme to that same Lightworks beat, and
right.
the Gobstopper joint, Buster and Rod Digger, they have a song called what's it called Just at the Range or something like that.
Yeah, something like
Just
that.
another day at the range, and Rod Digger killed it, and then Nas did the season on the Diary album from Dilla, and he killed it. And a lot of those beats, Whip You with a Strap, Ghostface used that on Fish Scale. So a lot of those beats I already heard. I'm like, oh, this is the some of them I didn't even know Dilla did. I'm like, oh, this is Dilla, okay. And but it's a recognizable album because it's like his is one of his last, and a lot of people know those beats from like the other albums. So yeah, that's definitely a classic instrumental. I remember like discussing that with the commission crew from Instagram. Salute to the commission. So that was a great album review on that instrumental album. So you know what I mean, like yeah, like that's definitely like classic. I feel like he has a lot of classics as a producer, whether they were instrumentals or doing stuff for other artists or his own stuff or Slum Village, and this is why he was so special, and you'll be missed forever.
Right.
You know, where do you rank him? Like if you had to rank him as a producer, where do you rank him like on Mount Rushmore? Is he like in the top five, top 10?
He's literally number 5 on my list.
Oh, okay, number five. That's good.
Yeah, literally.
Right. I got him in my top 10. I think he's the top in the top 10 with like Pete Rock and Premier, Eric Sermon, Dre, Timbaland, Pharrell. I love all of those beat makers. So like I said, like he definitely was special, man, and he did a lot of work that like he worked more than the producers that's working now.
Right.
To do stuff when you're suffering from what he had again.
Lupus.
Lupus, to be suffering with lupus and in your hospital bed making beats and making albums, like that's dedication, man. He was all about the culture. He didn't care about the money and all that and the fame. He was all about the music, and that's why I fuck with artists like that. They all about the culture first, and the money secondaries, and that's how it should be. And it's unfortunate a lot of these artists and producers don't think like that. They don't have that work ethic like Dilla do,
They
and
don't.
it's crazy, man. Like he gonna be missed forever.
Shit. Who's your favorite producer though?
My favorite producer all time is Pete Rock because like Dilla, you see, I could relate to like a lot of the younger kids that their favorite producer might be Doom or Dilla now because they give them that same feeling now that Pete Rock gave me like in 1992. You know what I'm saying? Like when I first listened to like Mecca and the Soul Brother, and then like when I used to listen to him on WBLS as a DJ, and then like when he started branching out and started doing like so many remixes for like K Solo and Foo Schnickens and all them, you know what I'm saying? So he was like, yo, like I fuck with Pete. Like Pete, he just had that knock, and then he had like the jazzy horns and the bass lines and his production and the ad libbing on the tracks, and that was he wasn't even rapping really like that until like later on, and that's always been him and Primo's always been like my favorites, you know, and and just like my first concert was seeing him in CL, and I'm like, yo, man, like that was like a dream come true to see them in concert, and he still got it, you know what I'm saying? Like he's still reveling in today's music, still putting out heat for different artists, so it's always gonna be Pete Rock for me.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Yeah, we might have to do that one day. Like we might have to do a discussion on that.
Yeah, I'm down.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe I could bring some other people on. And we could have like a big debate or something, a heated debate. you know. But yeah, this is the Dilla tribute episode. Your favorite Dilla songs or Dilla produced albums in the comments. Danny Rap Podcast with Trabo and Reg.
Peace.
Peace.